Human speed. Think about that for a second. From a blink of an eye to, I don't know, dashing across the street. It's something we all experience, right?
Yeah, constantly.
But how often do we really dig into what makes us fast? Or even what fast truly means for us humans?
That's a great question.
Well, that's exactly what we're doing today. You shared some fascinating material, including one called The Speed of a Human, an AI perspective.
Right.
And our mission here is to unpack this whole idea, looking at both our physical quickness and, the speed of our minds.
And using that AI lens gives it a unique twist, doesn't it?
It really does. It's a different way of looking at ourselves.
What jumps out right away is how the sources split human speed into those two main buckets.
Okay.
You got the physical stuff, how fast we move, react, like a tennis player hitting a return.
Yeah, the obvious speed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then there's the internal stuff, cognitive speed.
Yeah.
How quickly we process information, make decisions when things get complicated.
So it gives us a solid framework to start with. And it's not just about stopwatches and reaction timers, is it? The sources point out how subjective speed feels.
Oh, absolutely. Like when you're totally engrossed in something, time just disappears.
Right. Or remember being a kid, summer felt like it lasted forever.
Huh. Yeah, exactly. It really depends on how engaged you are, your age, the situation.
The context, yeah.
And zooming out a bit, why do we even have this capacity for speed, physical and mental? The sources hint it's basically a survival thing.
Ah, evolution.
Being able to react fast to danger, make quick choices. That would have been crucial, wouldn't it? For well-being, survival, our success as a species, really.
Makes sense. Okay, so let's get into the biological nuts and bolts. What's actually underpinning our speed in our bodies and brains?
Starting physically, genetics plays a pretty big role.
Okay.
The sources mention specific genes, like ACTN3, sometimes called the speed gene, and another one, ACE.
The speed gene, really?
Well, yeah. ACTN3 seems to influence our muscle fiber type, leaning towards fast twitch fibers.
Which are good for
Power, quick contractions, sprinting, jumping. Studies show elite sprinters often have a specific version of ACTN3 more than, say, endurance athletes.
Interesting. And ACE?
ACE is more about cardiovascular function, which obviously supports physical effort, too.
So does that mean our speed potential is basically locked in at birth? Are we just born fast or slow?
Well, no, not entirely. Genetics gives you a blueprint, a potential range maybe, but it's not the whole story.
Right.
The sources stress that. Estimates vary, but genetics might account for, let's say, 30 to 80% of the difference in athletic performance.
That's a huge range.
It is, which tells you other things are critical.
Yeah.
Training, environment, sheer dedication. They make a massive difference.
Okay.
And it's usually not just one gene either.
Right.
It's complex, lots of genes interacting.
Right, right. So beyond genes, what's physically happening when someone's sprinting flat out?
It's pretty amazing, biomechanically. It's less about just moving your legs faster and more about how much force you slam into the ground and how quickly you generate that force. We're talking less than 1/10 of a second per foot strike at top speed, according to the sources.
Wow. Less than 1/10 of a second.
Yeah, that rapid force development is key. And powering that kind of intense burst, that relies heavily on anaerobic metabolism, quick energy, but you can't keep it up for long.
That's incredible. Okay, let's switch tracks to mental speed. Is there a similar genetic link there, how fast our brains work?
Yes, there seems to be. Twin studies suggest processing speed is quite heritable, maybe somewhere between 43% and 74%.
So similar to physical speed, genes play a decent part.
They do. And interestingly, the genetic influence on cognitive abilities often becomes more noticeable as we get older, moving from childhood to adulthood.
Huh. Why is that?
That's a complex question, probably related to how genetic potentials unfold over time with experience.
Okay. And what about the brain's hardware? What physical parts are crucial for cognitive speed?
You've got key regions like the frontal lobe, essential for planning, problem solving. The hippocampus, vital for forming memories. The amygdala, important for emotional responses and memory too.
Right.
But it's also about how efficiently these areas talk to each other. That's where myelination is huge.
Myelination.
Yeah, it's like insulation around nerve fibers. It lets signals travel way faster and more efficiently. Think of it like good wiring.
Gotcha. Faster connections.
Exactly. And don't forget sleep. Good quality sleep is absolutely fundamental for the brain to process things quickly and efficiently.
Note to self. So how does our thinking speed change across our lifespan? Do we slow down?
Generally, yes, in some ways. The sources suggest processing speed, which is tied to fluid intelligence. Our ability to think flexibly and solve new problems often peaks in early adulthood.
Early adulthood, okay. And then?
It might gradually decline after that. But our crystallized intelligence, our accumulated knowledge, skills, vocabulary, usually keeps increasing.
So we might get a bit slower on the uptake with totally new things, but we know more stuff.
Pretty much, yeah. We compensate. And there's also a genetic link found between the health of the brain's white matter, those myelinated fibers, and processing speed.
Makes sense. The better the wiring, the faster the signals.
Exactly. And keep in mind, different cognitive skills peak at different times. Raw speed might peak early, but maybe understanding emotions improves later.
Okay.
But here's a really key point from the sources. When you look at changes in cognitive function across the lifespan, environmental factors, lifestyle experiences, health, seem to have a much bigger impact than genes.
Really? How much bigger?
The estimate mentioned is around 76% environmental influence versus 24% genetic influence on those changes over time.
Wow, that's actually really encouraging. It means we have quite a bit of influence ourselves.
We do. Our choices matter a lot for maintaining cognitive function.
Okay, let's dive deeper into that cognitive side. The sources talk about the cognitive landscape of speed. What all does that include?
Think of it as all the interconnected metal gears turning. At the core is processing speed itself, how fast you take in info, figure it out, and prepare a response.
Like understanding instructions quickly.
Exactly. Or reacting to a traffic light. Then there's reaction time.
How is that different?
Reaction time is the whole loop. Perceive the stimulus, process it, and initiate the physical response. It includes the processing speed part, but also perception and action initiation.
Okay, got it. Processing is understanding. Reaction includes the doing.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
And both rely heavily on focused attention and concentration. Can't be quick if you're distracted, right?
Definitely not.
Short-term and working memory are also crucial. Holding info in mind, manipulating it. That's vital for quick thinking, making fast decisions.
Right.
And then there's decision-making speed itself, and also something called cognitive estimation, like quickly guessing how long something will take or how many objects are in a group.
Our brains are doing all these rapid calculations constantly.
Pretty much, yeah, often below our conscious awareness. And these things are all linked.
What can slow them down?
Well, age, as we mentioned. Neurological conditions like ADHD, dyslexia, or brain injuries can have an impact. Mental health is a big one too. Stress, anxiety, depression can really put the brakes on cognitive speed. And sleep, again, poor sleep is a major culprit.
It keeps coming back to sleep.
It really does. And that fluid intelligence we talked about, the agile thinking, that's closely tied to processing speed and usually peaks early on.
The sources also mention different types of reaction time.
Yeah, that's interesting. There's simple reaction time, one signal, one response. Like pressing a button when you see any light, that's the fastest.
Okay.
Then choice reaction time. Multiple signals, each needing a different response. Like pressing a left button for a blue light, a right button for a red light. That's slower because you have to choose.
Right, makes sense.
And selection reaction time. Multiple signals, but you only react to one specific one. Like press the button only if you see the red light, ignore the blue. Complexity adds time.
More thinking involved.
Exactly. The more complex the task, the more processing needed, the longer the reaction time.
Okay. Now, something else the sources brought up, which I definitely feel, is this idea of cognitive offloading, using AI tools.
Yes. Using technology to basically do some of the thinking for us.
Yeah, like relying on GPS or search engines constantly. What's the take on that?
Well, it's a potential trade-off. AI can help us access info incredibly fast, process things quickly.
Which sounds good.
Can be. But the sources raise a flag. Are we becoming too reliant? Could it actually weaken our own cognitive muscles, our ability to think quickly and critically on our own?
Like the GPS example, you use it all the time, maybe you lose your own sense of direction.
Exactly that analogy. It's something we need to be mindful of as these tools become more integrated into our lives.
Definitely food for thought. Okay, let's pull back and look at the bigger picture, how human speed has changed throughout history. The transformation is just mind-boggling.
It really is. The sources trace this arc beautifully. Starts with just walking, right? Then animal power, basic boats.
Pretty slow going.
For sure. The wheel was a huge step for land travel, then paved roads. But the real game changer for physical speed was the steam engine.
Trains and steamships.
Yeah, suddenly long distances became much more manageable. Travel times plummeted, connecting the world in new ways.
And then the 20th century just blew the doors off with cars and airplanes.
Absolutely radical changes. From horse and buggy to supersonic jets in Historically speaking, the blink of an eye.
And building highways, high-speed rail.
Yeah.
Just pushing faster and faster.
And you see a parallel explosion in communication speed.
Right, from oral stories and slow handwritten messages.
Which were revolutionary in their time.
True. To the printing press. That was massive for spreading information.
Huge. Democratized knowledge. Then the 19th century brings the telegraph, then the telephone, near instant communication over vast distances.
Unbelievable for the time.
Then radio, TV. Mass media reaching millions instantly. But nothing compares to the internet and mobile tech.
Yeah, it's hard to even remember life before instant global connection.
It really is. It's transformed everything.
So this constant acceleration in getting places and talking to people, what are the consequences?
Well, the sources point out it's a mixed bag. Huge benefits, obviously efficiency, economic growth, new social possibilities.
But downsides too.
Definitely. Challenges like urban sprawl, environmental impacts from all that travel, and that feeling of constant information overload we just talked about.
Yeah, that feeling of being overwhelmed.
And transportation especially acted as this catalyst for huge social shifts, migrations, economic booms, the spread of big ideas like abolitionism, moving faster.
Wow. So just being able to move faster changed society itself.
Fundamentally, it's reshaped human civilization.
Okay, let's shift again, maybe get a bit more philosophical. How do we think about speed and time from those perspectives?
This is where it gets really deep. Philosophers have argued for ages about time itself. Is it real, objectives ticking away out there?
Or
is it subjective? Something created by our minds, our experience. We all know how time can feel like it's flying or dragging.
Sure, waiting for the kettle to boil versus being on vacation.
Exactly. That elasticity is key. And speed often gets used as a metaphor, right, for progress, change, the pace of modern life.
Yeah, we talk about society accelerating.
But it's not always seen as a good thing. The sources mentioned the slow living movement.
Ah, right. Pushing back against the constant rush.
Precisely. It values mindfulness, depth, quality over just doing things faster, like a philosophical counterpoint.
It feels like a real tension in today's world. The push for speed versus maybe a deeper human need for slowness.
I think that captures it well. And philosophers have even debated the idea of the speed of time itself. Does that phrase even make sense? Ultimately, whether time is objective or subjective really shapes how we view human speed. It makes it relative, dependent on perception and context.
And even speed versus slowness can have ethical weight.
Historically, yes. Different cultures and thinkers have valued pace differently, associating speed or deliberation with certain virtues.
Interesting.
And this links to the idea of social acceleration. The feeling that life is speeding up isn't just about technology. It might be deeper changes in society, culture, how we structure things.
Okay, so how does psychology view all this? What does the fast pace do to us?
Psychologically, the picture painted by the sources isn't always pretty. Lots of potential downsides to this constant rush.
Like stress and anxiety. I think many of us feel that.
Definitely. That feeling of being overwhelmed, constantly behind, it's a major source of stress. It can lead to burnout. In more serious cases, it can contribute to depression, maybe even social isolation if we're too busy to connect properly.
And attention spans. Does the speed affect that?
The sources suggest a link, yeah. Our hyper-connected, fast-cutting digital world might be shortening our ability to focus deeply. Constant notifications, rapid context switching.
Makes it hard to concentrate.
It can. And all that chronic stress isn't just mental. It hits our physical health, too. Sleep problems, weaker immune systems, heart issues.
Wow. So the speed costs us physically as well.
It seems so. Which brings us back again to things like the slow living movement as a psychological coping strategy.
Trying to be more intentional, mindful.
Exactly. Prioritizing quality over quantity, being present. And our perception of time itself is fascinating psychologically.
How so?
Novel experiences tend to make time feel slower. Our brain is busy encoding new stuff. Routine makes it feel faster.
Ah, that explains why childhood summers felt long. Everything was new.
Possibly. And as we age, each year becomes a smaller fraction of our total life lived, which might also contribute to that feeling of time speeding up.
Huh. Never thought of it that way.
And research shows the actual pace of life differs across cities and cultures, too, based on economy, climate, values.
So what feels normal in New York might feel crazy fast somewhere else.
Precisely. And there's this psychological trait called time urgency, always feeling rushed, pressured by the clock, that really fuels the negative effects.
But there are ways to cope. The sources mentioned a model.
Yes, the PACE model. It stands for playfulness, acceptance, curiosity, empathy. It's presented as a framework to help us slow down our automatic reactions, respond more thoughtfully, and boost well-being in this fast world.
Pace, playfulness, acceptance, curiosity, empathy. That sounds helpful.
It aims to be practical, yeah.
Yeah, this constant emphasis on speed and efficiency, it must raise some ethical questions too, right?
Absolutely. Big ones. One major concern is the risk of dehumanization.
How do you mean?
If we prioritize speed above all else in our interactions, think rushed service, quick judgments, we might lose genuine connection, empathy. We treat people like obstacles or cogs rather than individuals.
I can see that.
Then there are the ethical dilemmas around interventions to change human speed. Think drugs or neuroenhancements to make us think faster or react quicker.
Right. Who gets access? Is it fair? What even counts as normal speed anymore if we can change it?
Exactly. Very tricky questions.
And you shared a really tough question from the sources about cruelty people who seem to totally disregard human speed when they harm others.
Yeah, that's a difficult one. Psychologically, cruelty is often tied to a lack of empathy, maybe even dehumanizing the victim, seeing them as less than human, not deserving of consideration.
So they just don't register the victim's pace or needs.
Or they actively override it for their own purposes, perhaps control or inflicting pain. They might not value or even perceive the human speed, the normal pace and vulnerability of the person they're harming, because their empathy is switched off or distorted.
That's chilling.
It is. And societally, if we overvalue speed, do we risk marginalizing people who naturally operate at a slower pace? People with disabilities, maybe the elderly.
That's a really important ethical point.
Philosophically, it's about finding a balance, isn't it? Balancing efficiency with compassion, understanding, respecting dignity. And there's also the ethical worry that technology itself, with its focus on speed, could make us feel kind of enslaved or dehumanized by the pace it demands.
Yeah, feeling like you have to keep up. These are critical things to think about. Okay, let's circle back to AI. How can it help us understand, maybe even manage all this?
AI is quite good at modeling certain aspects of human speed processing information, reaction times by crunching huge data sets. That can help us understand the factors involved.
Okay.
And there's potential in developing AI tools for well-being. Think mental health chatbots offering support, or apps that monitor stress levels to help us cope with the pace.
So AI could be part of the solution, potentially.
Potentially, yes, helping teams collaborate better, make decisions faster, but we have to be realistic about its limits.
What are the main limits?
AI currently really struggles with subjective human experience. Emotions, self-awareness, that nuanced feeling of time passing. Doesn't get that like we do.
It can process data incredibly fast, but it doesn't feel fast or slow.
Exactly. It lacks that depth of human thought, emotional intelligence, reflection. Integrating AI with cognitive psychology might help create more empathetic AI down the line, but we're not there yet.
And the risks. We mentioned cognitive offloading.
Right. Over-reliance is a concern. Could it dull our own thinking? And some people experience technological anxiety stress from trying to keep up with rapidly changing tech.
So, cautious optimism.
I'd say a cautious approach is wise. We need to be thoughtful about how we integrate AI, making sure it genuinely enhances well-being.
Makes sense. Okay, let's tackle some of those specific questions from the sources you sent. First up, gambling. How does speed factor in there?
Gambling is really interesting from this perspective. It involves rapid decision-making, often under uncertainty. Cognitive biases play a huge role.
Like what?
The illusion of control thinking you can influence random outcomes. The gambler's fallacy thinking past results affect future ones, like a roulette wheel being due for red.
Ah, right.
And the brain's reward system is the key. Dopamine release creates that rush, reinforcing the behavior, making it hard to stop even when losing. Emotions like excitement, hope, stress can also cloud judgment dramatically in fast-paced gambling scenarios.
So it's a potent mix of fast thinking, biases, and brain chemistry.
A very potent mix.
Okay, next question was much deeper. Meaning of life, death, and how human speed fits in.
Yeah, big questions. The sources mentioned Heidegger's idea of being towards death.
Meaning?
Basically, that our awareness that we will die fundamentally shapes how we live, how we experience time. It gives life urgency, meaning perhaps.
And AI?
AI, being non-biological, lacking self-awareness, doesn't really have a concept of mortality or existence like we do.
Yeah.
It can't grasp death in that deeply personal, existential way.
So the idea of human speed ceasing at death
is
seen as that transition from being to non-being. It's a boundary concept that AI doesn't experience. It's central to human philosophy and religion, though.
a profound difference.
Yeah.
Okay, last specific one. Resilience, particularly laughter. How does that relate? Laughter is framed as a great resilience tool, a coping mechanism. It helps us get some distance from problems, boosts positive feelings, eases physical tension. It's like a quick reset.
A quick mental break.
Exactly. But humor is very subjective, isn't it?
Mm.
Depends on culture, personal history, mood.
Totally.
And the type of humor matters. Positive, self-enhancing humor is generally linked to better well-being. Sarcasm or aggressive humor might not be so beneficial psychologically speaking.
Interesting. So a good laugh can genuinely help us handle the pace of life.
It seems so. A valuable human tool.
Okay, looking ahead now, what's the future trajectory for human speed likely to be? More acceleration.
The general consensus from the sources seems to be
Yes.
continued acceleration, largely powered by technology, especially AI.
More AI integration into daily life.
Seems inevitable, impacting decisions,
Yeah.
communication, work, maybe even biotech and genetic engineering playing a bigger role in human capabilities down the line.
Wow. So the debate about the right pace of life isn't going away.
Not likely. We'll keep grappling with it. There'll be amazing opportunities, more efficiency, new possibilities, maybe breakthroughs in health.
But also challenges.
For sure. Information overload getting worse. More ethical puzzles, potential negative impacts on how we think and feel if we're not careful. Expert predictions for the next decade or so are actually quite mixed, seeing both benefits and drawbacks from AI's growing influence.
So uncertainty remains.
Definitely. And we're starting to see things like autonomous robots, AI talking directly to other AI processes happening at speeds totally beyond human comprehension. That could accelerate society's overall pace even further.
It's a lot to take in. So wrapping this up, human speed is clearly way more than just how fast we run or react.
Absolutely. It's this incredibly complex mix of biology, perception, history, philosophy, psychology, ethics, all tangled together.
And technology has thrown a massive accelerant on the fire, changing the pace of life profoundly.
Bringing huge advantages, but also real psychological and ethical costs we need to weigh.
The whole slow living idea seems like a direct response to that, a sign people are looking for balance.
It does. A growing awareness that faster isn't always better.
And AI. It's a tool for understanding, maybe helping, but it doesn't get the full human picture yet.
Not even close, really. It lacks the subjective depth. So yeah, human speed is dynamic, it's evolving, and understanding it requires looking at all these different angles.
Which brings us to a final thought for you, the listener. As technology keeps pushing the boundaries, keeps accelerating everything around us, how do we, individually, consciously choose the pace of our own lives? How do we make sure that pace works for our well-being, aligns with what we truly value, and isn't just dictated by the machine?
That's the crucial question, isn't it? Finding that balance between speed and a truly fulfilling human experience.
Definitely something to keep thinking about.
This is DigitView.